NBA free agency starts on Monday, so I gotta get this out early. Gotta get you guys my predictions. As always, drop yours down below, whether by team or player, and let's get into it. We can start here with James Harden, a guy that, despite being 35 years old, had a bit of a career resurgence last year. Although his numbers might not look too different, you can just tell, man, he looked more fluid, he looked healthy, and at times he looked like prime James Harden, a guy that last year was able to elevate guys like Norman Powell and Zubac to career years. And despite the questions around Kawhi's health, he got this team to the playoffs, and there was a stretch where they won, 17 of 18 games? The Clippers were fun to watch last year, and James Harden was there and outperforming all until that couple last games of their season. Regardless, he goes into free agency for probably the last time in his career, and after Orlando went after Desmond Bane, after Houston re-signs Fred VanVleet, honestly, I think it's clear cut. He's just going to return to the Clippers on a 2 to 3 year max deal and ride out his career. Now, speaking about an elderly player, LeBron James, the king, arguably the best player of all time, is still averaging 24, 8, and 8, which is kind of a down year for LeBron James, as crazy as that might sound. But this is a guy that's same situation. He's looking for his last year or two max contract to ride out his career. I think he stays in LA. He loves it. It fits everything he's trying to do as far as off the court and on the court. Not to mention, he now has Luka Doncic running next to him. LeBron's staying in LA. Now, this one's interesting because Julius Randle, just a year ago, we were saying, why did you trade Karl Anthony Towns for Julius Randle? It was a worse fit on paper, and on paper, it was a worse player going from Towns to Julius Randle. But it actually worked kind of the same, right? Western Conference Finals loss. But 19.7 rebounds a game. Julius Randle is 30 years old, so he still has a good 3 to 4 years left in his NBA career until he starts to regress. I think he stays in Minnesota, man. I think they like what they saw out of him last year, especially the second half of the season. And he was such a pivotal part in the playoffs. I can't see any reason why he doesn't return, again, on a 3 to 4 year max contract for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, on paper, this is the prototypical best center that you could want in a 2025 offense. Miles Turner, 15 points a game, 6 rebounds, which isn't great, but he's averaging multiple blocks a game, and he can shoot the lights out of the basketball unless it is the NBA Finals. This is a guy that, look, he's been in Indiana for lifer. I did throw out the idea last week that with how he played in the postseason, with the moments that, sure, he had good games when they were blowing teams out, but when they needed him the most, especially in the finals, he was just obsolete. He was transparent, and this is a guy that you need to step up to the plate, especially at 29 if you're going to give him $30+ million a year. So again, for Miles Turner, same situation as Naz Reid. He brings all the physical tools you want, which Detroit would love. A team that's feisty over there in Detroit, and they can rebound the ball outside of Turner. So I could see them throwing a bag at Miles Turner. But for Indiana, he's a four-lifer. It feels wrong saying that he doesn't finish his career in Indiana. Now, as you can tell at this point in the video, free agency has been ruined by the second apron. I'll say that. Malik Beasley, though, a guy that last year, 16 points a game on 42% from three. Again, that's off of 5 to 6 attempts a game. So he is strictly shooting the three ball, and he's doing it very well. Detroit built something special last year under JB Bickerstaff. They made the playoffs. They put up a fight in the first round. I see no reason why this team doesn't say, okay, we have a couple years till we have to extend some of these other young pieces. Let's give this guy a 2 or 3 big year contract. And I honestly, stay around. He's a good veteran mouthpiece, and he's a perfect fit in the backcourt next to Cade Cunningham. So Malik Beasley, it makes too much sense to return to Detroit. But ultimately, if he wants to test the waters, he can fit anywhere in the NBA. He can go back to Denver. He can go to Milwaukee next to Giannis if he wants a bigger role. Ultimately, Malik Beasley can fit anywhere on any team, whether rebuilding or not. Now, another guy that can fit on pretty much any team in the league is Al Horford, but ultimately, I don't want to see this dude anywhere but Boston, especially because he's like 40 years old. Last year, 9.6 rebounds off the bench, such a pivotal part, and I think we can all agree that this player and the next couple, their impact goes beyond the numbers. So Al Horford, especially with the loss of Kristaps Porzingis, we've already heard Brad Stevens say that they want to bring Al Horford back for his last contract. So no doubt in my mind, again, he returns to Boston, no changes yet. Now, believe it or not, I think this is going to be the first change out of today's video. Chris Paul, last year, 9.7 rebounds off the bench, sometimes as a starter there for the San Antonio Spurs. He was huge, and I honestly loved his fit next to Victor Wembanyama. But this offseason, with the Spurs drafting Dylan Harper and the fact that they still have Stephon Castle, they have De'Aaron Fox, there's not going to be a lot of minutes there for Chris Paul, at least not in a significant role. This is a guy that wants to compete for a title, and I think there's two legitimate options that he can go with. I think the Dallas Mavericks make the most sense. Kyrie Irving's going to be out for probably until January, February range, and he's not going to be fully back to being Kyrie until the playoffs come around. So they need a starting point guard next to Cooper Flag, next to Anthony Davis. Get those guys in their spots and let them flourish offensively. Klay Thompson in there as well. He needs a bounce back season. Chris Paul is that guy. The point guard, a guy that elevates everybody around him, whether veteran or rookie. And I just think on paper, he's a perfect fit next to Cooper Flag, especially if he's the future of the Dallas franchise. So Chris Paul to Dallas makes a lot of sense. But if I want to throw out a flyer here, I'm going to say the LA Lakers. And I'm not saying that just because, well, hey, they're a big market, they get the big names. But this is a guy in LeBron James and Chris Paul that are best friends off the court. And all of the Banana Boat has played together outside of Chris Paul and LeBron James. Chris Paul and LeBron James, of course, have not been on the same NBA team at this point in their careers. And Chris Paul could go there, be a great leader off the bench, next to Luka, next to LeBron, Austin Reeves, and he could just be the point guard off the bench for this team. Let's not forget that JJ Redick and Chris Paul have a great relationship off the court, and they played together for many years. So Chris Paul to the Lakers just makes a lot of sense. Now for Westbrook, this is the guy that last year I think had his best career season off the bench so far in his career. 13.6 rebounds and basically 6 assists as well. At 36 years old, this is a guy that is looking for his last team or so in his NBA career. I think he does return to Denver, given the fact that they are a championship contender, given the fact that his role is kind of cemented on this bench unit. Now, if Russ wants to say, well, I don't like how they used me once they changed coaches last season, I could see him going to Houston, going into this Ime Udoka system, coming off the bench, pairing up with Kevin Durant yet again in his career. But he could just be that veteran mouthpiece for a lot of these rookies next to Durant, and he's going to be a defender. He's going to be that intense player, that new Dylan Brooks level player for the Houston Rockets. So if he's going anywhere else but Denver, I like Houston as a fit because he is everything Dylan Brooks was, but a lot better. Now I want to go into a lot of players that aren't probably going to leave their teams this offseason. You have to get these guys via trade. And honestly, I just want to throw out some fun scenarios. So I think the next couple players to clarify will be on their rosters next year, but let's get fun. Let's get exciting. If they are to be traded, where could they go? Now, for Giannis Antetokounmpo, my favorite location and landing spot is the San Antonio Spurs. There's no doubt about it. I don't care what the Spurs have to give up. If you can imagine Giannis next to Wemby, that might be the best defensive front court ever in the NBA. And I'm not even joking. With their quickness, their instincts, their just impact defensively would sell out arenas alone. And then you add in the offensive side of the ball. I love Giannis to San Antonio, but if not, there's been rumblings that he wants to stay in the Eastern Conference for good reason. It's wide open. I could see Toronto maybe being a team that swoops in and gets him. But if Toronto is the team to get him, I think there needs to be a third team because I don't think there's any way that Toronto can give up 4 to 5 valuable pieces and then just throw Giannis and Scotty Barnes on the court and expect that to win an Eastern Conference this year. So honestly, Toronto is a bit more questionable. I love San Antonio, but does Giannis want to go to the West Coast? I don't really think so. Now, for Devin Booker, this is the guy that after his finals run just kind of feels pushed to the side, forgotten about, underrated, some would say, because I just don't think he gets the respect he deserves. This is the guy that is averaging 26 points a game, and last year, this is the guy that, with the additions of Tyus Jones, still had to take over the point guard roles and be the main facilitator on this team. So despite taking a step back and being more of a facilitator and being a secondary option offensively, he still averaged 26 points a game on great efficiency. Devin Booker is still a top 15 level player in the game today. And honestly, if Phoenix were to ship him off, which I don't think they would at this point in the offseason, I think sending him back home to a secondary home in Detroit, he grew up in Grand Rapids, sending him back to Detroit next to Cade Cunningham and let's say, I don't know, Jalen Duren, I think that's a very interesting piece in addition to the Detroit offense because last year it was Cade or nothing in the playoffs. You get Devin Booker next to Cade Cunningham, that's dangerous. They're defenders, they're scorers, and they can both take over games on any given night. I think that would instantly put Detroit, in my opinion, as a top two team in the Eastern Conference. As crazy as that might sound. So if Devin Booker were to go elsewhere, I love Detroit, and he gets to go to an easier conference for the first time in his career. Now, this one might not be a shock because despite being 23 years old, he was recently traded to the Phoenix Suns, and the Phoenix Suns have already come out and say they're looking to reroute him. They're looking to trade him elsewhere. And honestly, I think you can pretty much put this dude anywhere that needs a young guard. I think you could put him with Brooklyn. You could put him with Toronto. You could put this dude in a lot of different places. Charlotte, if they want a go-to guy outside of LaMelo Ball. But they got a lot going on with Brandon Miller as well. Jalen Green can go a lot of different places. Let me clarify, I got lazy. He did not average 7 rebounds last year. But hey, still, young, promising scorer, can fit in a lot of different places. Honestly, I think Brooklyn might be the best place for him. He could be a better version of Cam Thomas, and he could just have the keys and all the opportunity in the world to go out there and just hoop. Do what he wants to do on a nightly basis. Now, quickly, this is becoming one of my favorite players in the league. Trey Murphy, 21 points tonight, 36% from three. At 25 years old, he is quietly, you know what, I'll say it, he is the most underrated player in the league. Trey Murphy, the third, a guy that can fit anywhere, anytime, any place. He's that versatile. He could be your team's best defender. He could be your team's best shooter. And hey, some nights he could do it all at once. Last year was a career year. And I think if the Pelicans are at this point in the offseason or at the midseason mark, if they suck again because Zion can't stay healthy, I could see it being kind of a fire sale. I think the Thunder, given that they have 20 plus first round picks the next couple years, and they could just get a better version of Lou Dort and Cason Wallace, Trey Murphy could be heading to Oklahoma City. There's been no rumblings of that. There's been no reports, but Oklahoma City just getting an upgrade on their roster and a better three-ball shooter than Lou Dort could definitely be an option. But honestly, if he doesn't go to Oklahoma City, I'm being selfish. This might be one that I'm kind of shooting from the hip, but my Cleveland Cavaliers, get in the mix for Trey Murphy. He could be the game changer that we need. They want a valuable playoff level role player, and they want first round picks. We can give them DeAndre Hunter, Ty Jerome, and maybe a first round pick or two. I think that solves a lot of the problems the Cavaliers have, and I think on paper that is a must trade if we can do it. We'll finish off here in oh-so Sacramento, a team that was at the highest of high just a few years ago when they made their first playoff push in, almost 2 decades? Maybe even over that, right? But this is a team that since then has only crumbled under their feet. They traded away De'Aaron Fox. They traded for Zach LaVine, and they're trying to rebuild the Chicago Bulls just a little bit better with Domantas Sabonis. But ultimately, this is a team that has a younger head coach, and you kind of saw this team's ceiling last season. You were fully healthy for a majority of the year. You made the play-in, and you weren't even able to get out of the play-in. So I think you've already seen the ceiling of this team. Why not? Let's just go out there and sell everything. Let's get a lot of draft capital. We saw the blueprint to how Oklahoma City built their roster. They had a lot of draft picks. Just go out there and do the same exact thing if you're Sacramento. Trade DeMar DeRozan to Miami or Memphis for 3 to 4 first-round picks because that's just the asking price for players nowadays. Trade Sabonis for the same asking price. I think you can kind of trade a lot of this roster away and get valuable picks or draft picks going forward. Honestly, unless you do that, you're just a team stuck in purgatory. So Miami, Memphis, 2 teams I could see DeMar fitting nicely around their star players. Now for Domas, he is one of my favorite centers in the league. Might even be my favorite center in the league. 19 points, 14 rebounds a game, and last year was the best year of his three-point shooting career. Not even 30 years old yet. I could see this dude fitting, honestly, as weirdly as it sounds, not as many places as you would think, despite the skill set that he would bring. I think this is a guy that would be a Julius Randle kind of a situation where he goes to a team and you're like, oh, I never really thought about that fit before, but here it is, and I think it honestly works on paper. But Memphis honestly kind of works. I just don't know how they get that done contractually. Charlotte, kind of same thing. They do have the money, but would Domas want to go to a rebuilding team? Honestly, again, he's a weird player. I can see him in a lot of different places, but do the teams want to give up the money and the pieces to get Domantas Sabonis? That's the big question. But honestly, I love Domas. He's going to keep killing it no matter what team he's on. I just hope it's not Sacramento anymore. But those are my 2025 NBA free agency predictions. As always, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and drop your predictions down below. I'll get back to every single comment.